Hey, greetings everyone. Hello from Tucson. The scenery here is just incredibly spectacular. There's just these amazing mountains behind me, and as you can see, just cactus everywhere, and the cactus just really feel so vibrant, like just really alive beings. And so I felt like I wanted to spend a little time chatting with them and with you. So I posted my win on our Facebook page a little bit ago from the workshop today and on Friday. And so I was just thinking about, my journey in getting to this place, and it's been quite a long and arduous journey. And so I was reflecting about the purpose of adversity. And so I know many of us are going through our own experiences of adversity right now, so I thought that I would just reflect a little bit on the ways that adversity can be purposeful, because when we're in the midst of it, then it could be hard to remember that. So I am here at a leadership symposium for GALA Choruses, which is a global LGBT choral organization. And one of the main things that they do is every 4 years, like the Olympics, then they sponsor a massive choral festival of all the LGBT choruses around the world. And so in 2012, then I went to my very first one because it was in Denver, and I was very excited about it because I'd heard such incredible things about it. And it turned out to be an extremely traumatic experience for me as a trans person. So I was very shocked to find in 2012 that this LGBT Choral Association Festival had absolutely nothing related to transgender people's lives. There was no trans content for anything. There was a festival women's chorus and a festival men's chorus and a festival mixed chorus. There were social events and workshops for all of these various communities, and nothing for transgender people. And in fact, a lot of very traumatic and unfortunate experiences, such as singing in the festival mixed chorus and having the director referring to singers as ladies and gentlemen, which I was very appalled by. The one song that was presented on stage that remotely had to do with trans people's lives is called the Gender Polka, which is a favorite of lesbian gay choruses and is just really insulting and demeaning to transgender people. And so that was really upsetting. I was singing with the LGBT chorus in Denver at the time, and part of our set, then we had spoken word stuff, and so I had submitted a spoken word piece about my experience as a trans person. That's one of the things I had posted in this group a while back ago, maybe about a month ago, talking about how I experienced myself as a bridge, as a trans person. And I was pretty proud of the piece. And the director, because many folks in the group were not actually out, then the director decided that the most respectful thing that he could do as a director was to have other people read people's stories, and so people didn't have to read their own stories so they could be anonymous. For me, as a trans person who looks the way that I do, anonymity means invisibility for me. And so what happened was my story was spoken from the stage, but it was spoken by somebody else. And so throughout the whole festival, then this other person basically was approached by all of the trans people at the festival wanting to connect with them, and that person was actually not trans. So many trans people were actually quite insulted that this non-trans person had read my story, and then I was separated from my own story, and so nobody could connect with me and find me. And so I was just very, very upset and traumatized, and so I made a little handwritten sign that said trans at GALA to try to connect with other trans people. And, we decided that this is not going to happen again. And I decided personally that this is not going to happen again, even if I have to start my own chorus, which is what I ended up doing. That's how Phoenix came to be born, was not because I had the time or the skills or the resources to run a chorus, but because it really needed to exist and nobody else was doing it. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to do it myself. There's a particular hurt and pain of being marginalized in LGBT communities. I can say for myself as a trans person that, most of my most painful traumas have really come not from mainstream cisgender people and culture, but really from queer spaces and from feminist spaces. And so, to feel marginalized in queer spaces and to feel like other queer people are participating in and creating your erasure when you have to deal with that in your everyday life is just a particular special kind of hurt. And, there's also an incredible vulnerability that I have felt as a trans person when I was in women's spaces and also in gay and lesbian spaces of, when you're surrounded by people who are talking about how great that it feels to be in a safe space, and you're not sharing that experience, to not only feel, again, like an outsider in your own community, but also the incredible vulnerability involved in having to raise that and say, what, actually, this isn't really a safe space for everyone. This isn't really a welcoming space for everyone. And then to, have to deal with everybody's defensiveness because, so much of the response that I got was, how dare you, Sam, you're raining on my parade. I had this really great experience, and now you're telling me how you didn't feel welcome as a trans person, and now that has ruined my experience. And so, I kind of walked away from that experience feeling like, this is another space that is advertised as LGBT, but is really just for gays and lesbians. And it was even more exacerbated when I decided to offer a Trans 101 workshop in my chorus, because a lot of people, their response to my concerns and my hurt and my upset, really showed that they didn't necessarily understand the issues of trans people very well. And so I held a workshop, and actually the workshop also was hugely hurtful and traumatizing. And, I actually had people who just said to my face, like, we just don't really understand why you're here. Like, what does trans issues have to do with gay and lesbian issues? Which was really shocking to me, not only because of the ways that gender and sexuality are so tied up with each other, but also that, I had been in queer spaces for my whole entire adult life and had been a part of those communities. And so then to feel like, people in my own community couldn't recognize me was just really, really hurtful and traumatic. Just really a terrible experience on just every single level. And so, I sent a complaint email to the festival and ended up getting put on this committee, a welcoming committee to create change. It was a small committee, but we did really incredible things 4 years later for the 2016 festival, as far as creating a more welcome space, not only for trans and intersex and non-binary people, but also for people of color, because there was also somebody else who raised a complaint about, it was a very lovely festival and I definitely felt welcome, but I felt like I was welcome at somebody else's party. And so we put together a lot of the festival chorus for trans people, festival chorus for people of color, social gatherings for both, Trans 101 workshops, unlearning racism workshops, and creating gender-neutral bathrooms, safe spaces for dialogues. That I was one of the people who facilitated that. And so people who were coming for the first time to the 2016 festival had none of the same experiences of trauma that I had in the 2012 festival, and they had no idea just how traumatic that had been. And so fast forward to 2 years ago when I went to this leadership symposium for the first time and led a unlearning racism workshop for the board of this organization, as well as a couple of unlearning racism workshops for the members of the organization. And gosh, let's just say it was very challenging work. There was a lot of resistance, a lot of the kind of mentality of like, but we're gays and lesbians, so we're oppressed, like we're the marginalized ones. How dare you say that, we have the power to marginalize other people? And my friend that I was doing the work with also does quote-unquote diversity work in the Republican Party, and shared that he actually has an easier time doing this work in the Republican Party than he does in gay and lesbian organizations because of that mentality of people are so much in the habit of thinking of themselves as victimized and marginalized that it's hard for them to hear the ways that they do have power and can be marginalizing to other people. And so it was just really just so incredible this weekend to see the dramatic change that has happened through all the ways that I have been involved in this organization, to go from being somebody who, felt like such an incredibly marginalized outsider and just like a huge vulnerable victim in 2012. And then when I first arrived here this weekend and walked in, then the executive director of the whole organization basically came over and gave me a hug and told me about how marvelous that the work that I had been doing was, and how impressed she was by the writing that I had done. And I was just like, wow, I'm like hobnobbing with the executive director of the organization, who now knows me by name, specifically because, I'd had this hugely traumatic experience that at the time, just felt really unbearably painful. And yet so many really wonderful things have come out of it. So my chorus was born and, has just really created so much change and transformation for so many people in the chorus, but also the various communities that we have been involved with. And then this new workbook coming out that we put together that is changing the world already, that people are already passing on to other organizations, connecting with other trans choruses that are popping up now. Not only the one in Portland, there's one in LA. Apparently there's a new one in Spokane that I didn't know about. I think there's one in Kansas City, one in Minneapolis. So very, very exciting, and really feeling like, we are making history. And yet, none of this would have happened without this really terrible, traumatic experience. And so in the middle of going through those experiences, don't look to like, oh, how can I cheer myself out of it? Because that is not very respectful to our own emotions. But also, allow yourself to have the broader perspective of, what perhaps could be the purpose of the adversity that you're going through, and the ways that you can take your own painful experiences and create something really beautiful and positive in the world, so that other people behind you don't have to have the same kind of traumatic experiences that you have had. And I was also reminded yesterday morning about just the power that we have to create our own reality and our own inner experience. And so one of the workshops was for artistic directors about how to help your singers to emotionally connect to the music. And he gave the example of, oh, what a beautiful morning. It's like, if you're teaching this song to your chorus, then, you don't need to be having a beautiful morning in the moment when you are singing it in order to emotionally connect to it. But you need to have had the ability to have ever experienced a beautiful morning and to know what that feels like. And so if you have ever experienced it, then by focusing on it, then you can pull it up. And so remembering it allows you to bring up those feelings and to create them in the now. And so I think of this also as one of the purposes of meditation, to give us the opportunity not only to clear out our thoughts and to connect with something bigger, but also the chance to really choose how we want to feel. And so I invite you to consider a little homework assignment, and that is something I learned from my shamanic mentor. First thing when you wake up in the morning, rather than just hopping out of bed and jumping into the long list of things to do over the day or the stresses, my next Facebook Live will be about is your life chaos management. So rather than jumping into the chaos right away, just take a few moments before you even get out of bed to really run through your day in your mind's eye, and to really choose your day and decide, how you want to feel, and decide how you want your day to go, and to approach your day from being an active creator of it, rather than responding to it. Because I do think that that is one of the purposes of gender creative people, that we, are not meant to do what most people do, which is to, take life as it is and then react to life, but we are really meant to, decide how we want things to be, and then to create that reality for ourselves and for those around us. And that's a big part of what it means to be a leader. So I'm doing this on my phone, so I'm not exactly sure how the comments work, but it seems like a lot of people are commenting, and I'm wondering in particular if there's anything that you would like to share about an experience that you had of adversity that then kind of further down the line, when you look back on it, then it turned out that that was actually a really huge turning point for you that really allowed something positive to happen, even though maybe in the moment that was kind of hard to imagine. But when you look back on it, you're like, wow, if I hadn't have gone through that really terrible thing, whether that was getting fired from a job or an unexpected move or going through a breakup that turned out to be not getting something that you wanted, or you later look back and you're like, wow, that's really good that I didn't get what I wanted, because that would not have served me at the time. So if there's anybody who would like to share anything like that now, or you can post that on this video later. It looks like Christina is posting. That's really excellent. And a cello player, terrific. I played bass clarinet in band growing up. I was far too disconnected from my voice to be a singer. I didn't do that until well after college. And in fact, the first trans chorus that I joined in 2004 in Minneapolis, which I think is the second trans choir ever on the planet, it was connected to a trans vocal festival that I almost missed because I was laying on the floor of the bedroom of my apartment completely immobilized because I was just so overcome with fear and overwhelmed, because voice issues for me as a trans person was just one of my most painful areas, and I just didn't know. I knew that it would be good for me, but I just didn't know if I was up to that level of challenge. And so I forced myself to go and actually had a really important time. And when it came time to the director saying, oh, who would like to sing with us in the trans chorus, my mind was like, no way in hell is that going to happen. I could barely even open my mouth to sing in the car because I felt so self-conscious. And so I found my hand going up, and I was quite shocked, as though my hand was detached from the rest of my body, because I did not authorize my hand going up. But it was one of the most courageous things that I ever did at the time, and it was hugely rewarding. It was actually how I found my partner, was going through this fiery portal of joining this chorus and really confronting my fears. And so it's a little surreal now to be leading a chorus when voice issues for me, singing for me is not my area of greatest strength at all, but actually one of my life challenges, one of my biggest areas of weakness that I've been working on for my whole entire life. Looks like, Christina shared about I've been turned down on playing because I was trans. Yeah, I'm sorry for your experience, and it is sadly common, unfortunately. I'm sorry I'm not doing a better job of accessing the comments. This is the first time I'm doing this on my phone, so I'm not exactly sure how to do this. But I'm going to be hitting the road to head back home sometime soon, either tonight or in the morning. And so I look forward to responding to your comments and posts. And I'm sorry I've gotten so behind on that. My conference schedule ended up being super busy. And thank you, Amanda, saying sounds like you've come a long way. It has been quite a journey, and I guess that's just what I wanted to share today. It's just, wherever you're at in your journey today, whatever feels fresh and raw and painful and intense, you never know, 5 years down the line, looking back and seeing where that experience may have taken you. It could be something that you end up really incredibly grateful for. When my dad passed away, then I was reading Wayne Dyer at the time, and Wayne Dyer said, you know you're going to be grateful for this eventually, so you may as well be grateful for it now. And so I practiced that with my dad. And I did not practice that with regards to the trauma that I experienced in this choral association. But I am doing that today. So I just wanted to share that with you all. And thanks for being with me. And I look forward to connecting with you again when I get back around.